Noel, welcome to the Modern Warrior podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to have you here with me. How are you?
Having me. I'm good.
You've
Excited
been
to be here.
on quite an adventure.
I have.
Yeah. This is the towards the end of your latest trip to Ireland.
Yeah.
Been epic.
Yeah. It's been really powerful. I co-hosted a retreat, the Caulifs of Moore, called Sacred Sisters, and with a bunch of women, and seeing the transformation, and then also popping around to Galway and Dublin and then Scotland, and it's been good.
Yeah. I came across your profile on Instagram. Don't know, stumbled across it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And what struck me was your energy and your sensuality, and you seem very open and compassionate. And I was watching that, but I was wondering, as perhaps a lot of your other viewers would wonder, what is the story that nobody sees that shaped who you are today, what we see today?
Yeah, great question. So I've been through, I call them initiations. I've been through many, many, many initiations throughout my life. And in 2016, my mom passed away from stage 4 metastatic cancer. And we went on a 5-year journey where doctors initially gave her 3 months to live, and she thrived for 5 years. And I really got to understand how you have to be your own advocate for your body. And so that started to plant seeds around understanding the body. And also I had gone through my worst fear, which was losing my best friend. And walking through that, it started to shape my authenticity. I was really good at being the pleasing, palatable actress and model, and I could play all the parts and all the roles in life or behind camera, in front of the camera. And then I had been in a partnership for a really long time, and some stuff had gone on, and I got sick. And in my own healing journey, I was diagnosed with over 13 fibroid tumors and Lyme disease and mold toxicity. And I went on a journey and took a sacred pause from working and acting and modeling and all the things to focus on my healing. And I realized we're only as sick as our secrets. And I had been killing myself in guilt because I had stepped outside of my marriage. And so I told my husband, and he also had done the same, and we had done it around the same time. But something that had happened was I had come home one day and I hugged him. And when I hugged him, my womb literally said, "He cheated on you." But I didn't know how to fully listen to my body or trust my intuition. And so when we uncovered what we did, it was so beautiful and healing because there were no secrets. And, it was like we were on our honeymoon again. And then after a handful of months, we started to go our separate ways and stop seeing each other, like really seeing each other. And so I had surgery to remove 5 of the tumors because I had healed the rest naturally. 8 of the tumors. I had healed 5 naturally. And after my surgery, the plan was we were going to have a baby. But instead of giving birth to a baby, we gave birth to a divorce. And that divorce rocked my world. We were together for 18 years. And all this anger that I had stuffed down was just erupting. And I started gathering tools to learn how to move through this, because they don't really teach us about love and intimacy and marriage and sacred union and divorce. They don't really teach us about this. So I was learning as I went. And as a result of all of that, I made a lot of mistakes. The pendulum swung lots of ways. And along the way, I found my center and realized that I choose to live an authentic, radiant, liberated life. And I have medicine for other people to share with them how to do the same. And so all those initiations, as gnarly and challenging and maddening as they were, brought me to where I am today. And so, it may be, I think like with the gram, especially social media, it can look a certain way. It's been many dark nights of the soul, like snot-faced, tears, on my hands and knees, crying out, when will I be able to be on the other side of this? And slowly but surely, one day at a time, I got there. And so here I am today.
Wow. I'm just acknowledging the courage it takes to go through that process, because you could have gone many other directions. And was it a matter of you perhaps pursuing an easier path, a path of avoidance or escapism, before you realized that this was not the way? Or was it a matter of the pain arose and you immediately began to face it?
That's it. Yeah, I don't know too much about my astrology, but I know there's like some planet where it's basically like part of my makeup is to dive into the shadows. And so it's like an easier path has never been an option for me. I also call in a lot of ease and grace and peace. So like, may I attract that. And I prefer to always dive deep. And so sometimes diving deep, we see stuff that we don't necessarily want to see, but I'd rather see the truth than pretend.
But at the same time, the process, let's go back from when the divorce proceedings began to take place. There were issues in the marriage there because it resulted in both of you having stepped out of the marriage, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what do you feel was being avoided or perhaps not being addressed at that point?
Yeah. I didn't know what I was allowed to say. I didn't know what I was allowed to want. I'm so grateful to that man. He has been such a sacred teacher and will always be a great love of my life. And even though in our own way we had sacred union, there was also a lot of toxicity. And so I didn't know that I could say, hey, I need you to step up in these ways, or I desire this, or this isn't working for me. And so I would stuff down my truth and self-abandon. And so in that self-abandonment, but it wasn't like even a conscious, I wasn't even acknowledging the truth to myself. And, because we lived in New York and we were both actors and people saw us as like this power couple and, we had an image to maintain, right? And so I just didn't know the truth. Really, I didn't give myself the space and time to fully acknowledge my truth. And so part of that anger that was erupting, I wanted to blame him, but it was because I had self-abandoned. And so now as I walk through life, I try to give myself the space and time to go, okay, but what's the truth? What do I not want to see? And as I've started to do that, it's like sometimes ignorance is bliss. But, like I said, I choose to walk in truth as much as I can. And so once I saw it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. The self-abandonment piece is very interesting because it's been a wound of my own. It's quite common with a lot of the men that I would work with as well. And we keep ourselves in situations where we can feel safe, such as a relationship that no longer serves us, but serves this space where we feel, at least I'm safe here because I'm not alone. I don't feel abandoned, at least physically abandoned. So you found yourself in a situation where you were made to feel aware that you were self-abandoning yourself in the relationship, but then in realizing that you're self-abandoning yourself in the relationship, there's also the wound of abandonment that comes after the breakdown of the relationship. So how did you manage to cross the bridge between those two places? Because when you leave, it seems that that's when the wounds are fully exposed and you feel most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And again, it was the matter of you diving into the pain through your energy or through your awareness that you already had, or again, was this the resistance that kept you in a place of safety in the relationship?
I mean, it was all of it. Like when we started dating, I was 20. I was a baby, and I had an eating disorder for a decade. And so that eating disorder, it fed this not enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not this enough. So how small can I make myself?
Did you have an eating disorder during the
With
relationship?
him? Yeah. Yeah. So we started dating when I was 20. And from basically that moment on, for 10 years, I had an eating disorder.
You were aware of the eating disorder? Or yeah, you were.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And he was too.
Okay.
And
it just became a normal thing, or?
No, it wasn't normal, but it was also, I had seen therapists, I had seen people, no one could help me, right? Because it's an internal job.
Yeah.
And so after my mom got sick, around the time I was getting married, something clicked in me, and I thought, may the cycle of suffering end with me. I don't want to pass this on to my daughter. My mom had an eating disorder. Her mom had an eating disorder. This was a generational curse, right? So I was like, no more. So what I started to do was get really aware of, okay, I'm about to starve myself. What am I feeling? Just list your emotions. 9 times out of 10, it was fear. Fear that my fiance was gonna leave me. Fear that I wasn't gonna make it in my industry. Like my mom was gonna die. All these fears. Once I started having that awareness, the hold that eating disorder had on me was no longer as strong. And so slowly but surely, I started to heal myself, or so I thought. And so after that, no more eating disorder. But when I got a divorce, that same not enough, you're not enough or you're too much, that same wound got activated. And so those wounds activated certain parts. I don't know if you've heard of internal family systems.
I have heard of it.
Yeah. So it's like parts work where you go in and I'm like, oh, okay, this is a very young wound of love is given and love is taken away, that abandonment wound. Where does that come in? Oh, it started when I was 6 years old, right? So then you go and you sit with those parts and you start to recognize and ask those parts, what do you need? What messaging do you have for me? Are you just wanting to be held, right? Because it's like I think healing has this unattainable thing to it, which is like, we're on the search to heal. I got to be, once I'm healed. And for me, I'm like, these parts of us are still going to exist. And different things may or may not activate them. And so that's why I do a lot of shadow work, but I call it shadow play. And so, in recognizing in the divorce, oh my God, I'm not enough. Or like, I'm too much. My anger is too much. He can't, right? Once I recognized what part of me was online, was trying to run the show, I then could invite those parts, hey, I'm going to give you space, but right now the woman has to drive the car. You can't drive, we'll crash. And so slowly but surely, I started to tend to those wounds. And just when I thought I was in the clear, I started dating. And dating is the wild, wild west when you haven't dated in 18 years. So then I got to discover there's attachment styles, there's avoidant, there's anxious, there's, disorganized, there's fuckboys, all the things. And so similar wounds then got activated. And again, I got to tend to those. And so along this journey, like I was saying before, I gathered tools. And those tools now help me and help my clients as a result. And so it's like, I don't know if that even fully answers your question, but it's almost like I didn't have a choice as I walked this path. These things would come up. And because I value having a growth mindset and I'm a seeker of life, it's like, okay, well, here's this key. Let me unlock this door and see what's next,
I think you said something quite important there, which is you allowed yourself to experience again through the through the eyes of other people. So as you mentioned, you went back into the dating world after 18 years of being with somebody in a long-term relationship. And I feel that's a part that we often neglect, or we don't understand the true value of it. Again, I can speak for myself. When I went on this so-called healing journey, I completely isolated myself from people and went into this, so-called cave of such, and spent a lot of time on my own. And nobody really knew what I was going through or what I was processing or the journey that I was on. And I didn't allow myself to be exposed, or didn't allow that exposure to be seen. And in the last few years, I've realized the importance of allowing yourself to witness the reflection that's coming to you through the eyes of the person in front of you, or through the energy of the person you're experiencing something with. Such as you went back into the dating world and then you realized, oh fuck, I've still got a lot of shit here I need to look at.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah. And then again, that was the opportunity that you needed to bring you a step closer towards healing those wounds. So I think it's something that's very important for everyone to realize, is that this healing journey doesn't have to be a process of you going into solitude for months or years. That could actually be hindering your progress on this journey. Allow yourself to get back out there and instead perhaps approach these experiences and these situations from a place of curiosity instead of, oh shit, that person said this to me. What an asshole. Or I really like this person, but I don't feel the sense of attraction or physical attraction or emotional attachment to them, or emotional attraction to them. What's this showing me? So, but what we often do, it's something I've been learning myself and also showing the guys that I work with, is because it feels quite uncomfortable and it provokes a certain pain in us, we're more likely to project that back upon them. And as you mentioned, blame them for making us feel a certain way. Nobody makes you feel anything. They've simply mirrored back to you something within you that you're reluctant to look at. And if you have an approach of curiosity, which of course requires some courage to reflect on what's coming up, then there's your next step. There's your next opportunity to heal a deep wound within. So yeah, that's very important, I feel.
Yeah. And it's funny how you said you went into like self-isolating, right? I did the opposite, where I was just wanting to break free so badly. Seeing the ways I had caged myself, I started sharing online and oversharing, and the pendulum swung. And, again, I don't take any of it back, because it made me who I am today. And it also helped a lot of people along the way. And that's in sharing my vulnerability and sharing, sobbing and talking about my wounds. Even though it was cringy, like I felt so cringe at the same time. Every time I did the cringy thing online, it was easier to do the scary thing in real life. Because at this point, if like tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are seeing me act a fool, then I can have a scary conversation with this guy that I'm dating that I'm probably not even going to end up with. And so it was, I always tell women now when they're struggling with how to show up online, I'm like, you're going to get it wrong. The end. So what? And so that's what I started doing. I started sharing my sadness, my grief. And then a girlfriend said to me, she was like, but what about this other side? Like, you're so sensual. Why aren't you sharing that? And so then I started sharing how I move grief through my body and owning my sensuality, because also for a long time I had stuffed it down and tried to make sure everyone knows I'm safe. Let me be the good girl. And instead I started to share it, and it started to wake up, like flicker. It was like I lit my candle and then was lighting other candles as a result. And people had big emotions and big feelings about it, you know? And that was really hard to walk, to take those projections, until I stopped caring. And I realized, oh, there's medicine in triggers, right? Because it shows us where the wounds are, and the wounds are where the light gets in. So great, this is triggering you. So where in your life are you not free?
Triggers are teachers. Yeah, that's very interesting, because I would have done something similar on my own process towards healing these wounds, because I was quite active on social media. And then something happened a few years ago where there was some exposure of me in a webcam chat room, which was linked to my porn addiction of many years. And that was the turning point for me to shift my direction towards helping other men and helping them with these deeper traumas and pains. Because up to that point, I was a fitness coach, as a personal trainer. So the way I did that was to share my story and share my struggles. But on reflection, I feel as though I was sharing it from a place of showing people, or at least giving people the illusion that I had already overcome it. So here I am. I've had this struggle. I'm here now. I've conquered it. But deep down, that struggle was still very real and still had a tight grip on me. And this was my reluctance to show my vulnerability, because vulnerability, as I had learned in my childhood and over the years, has a perception of weakness.
Right.
And if you are weak, you're going to be attacked. Right. So present yourself as somebody who's strong, who's conquered the challenge, who's overcome the addiction, who's got beyond this incredible challenge. And this will inspire others to do the same. Whereas the reality was, I was still caught in this loop of shame, of porn and confusion and frustration, and still had a lot of unanswered questions about who I was and what my true purpose was here in life, because I was bypassing the truth. The truth was, actually, I'm not done here. I'm still struggling. I still have my moments of vulnerability. I still have times when this starts to creep back into my life, and I fall down again. And again, over the last probably 6 months, maybe a year, I feel showing up with more of that vulnerability. And again, this is where you're going to find your strength, because the vulnerability is the exposure of the pain. And the pain holds the belief system and the ideas and the identities that we've made our own over the years, which was probably projected upon us by somebody else, which isn't ours to own or take. So we lose a sense of connection with ourselves. So yeah, again, that's nicely done there, because when I was talking about that, it brought up that memory of my presence on social media, going through this process, showing people that, at least giving people the illusion that I was already through it when I was still already in it. And on reflection, I was giving out these insights, or perhaps advice, but I was really just speaking to myself, which helped.
Which helps. And also, it's like, I've worked with many people, Deepak Chopra, Gabby Bernstein, a lot of people in the empowerment space who are very well known, who are New York Times bestselling authors and speakers and all the things. And with as much as many of these people have their stuff together, to me, like, guru culture is dead. Like, that's done. This idea that in order to learn from a teacher, they have to have it perfectly together is nonsense. I've seen behind the curtain with a lot of these. Everyone is very human. And so I think there's something really beautiful when someone continually shows up and just takes accountability, And so that's the fact, the way you do show up online and speak and share is so incredible, because there are so many men, especially, but women too, where they just suffer in silence, live in the shame, and do nothing about it. It paralyzes them. And so the fact that you're able to say here today, yeah, and it's still like, this is something I've worked through. I think it's really rad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The detachment piece, detaching from the story, the identity, and just being real.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like that too. Wherever you are in your life is exactly where you need to be. So if you're not ready to be real and authentic and open yourself up to the world, then just take your time with this.
Yeah.
So again, our work is quite similar, but very different at the same time. So you work with women mostly, I believe.
Mostly women.
And what would you find is perhaps a common theme for a lot of these women when it comes to their struggles that perhaps men could possibly become aware of in order to support them and facilitate them through their process?
I think at the end of the day, all men and women crave is to be seen. But being seen is scary because that means without the mask, and will I be loved in my fuckery? Will I be loved in my darkness? Will I be loved in my light? Just
for those who wouldn't fully understand what being seen means, can you elaborate on that a bit more? Because there's some people listening or watching going, yeah, I see my wife all the time.
I see her.
I see her.
She's right here.
And I tell her she looks beautiful all the time. And I tell her I love her all the time. And isn't that it?
So intimacy, true intimacy is into me see. It's seeing behind the facade. It's seeing me when I am being a brat. When I call my shadow Angelica. She has a name. So when Angelica's very present and she just wants to, be bratty, it's, can you see that and love me? Can you see that and not shame me? Can you see me when I'm hurting and I'm scared? And can you not even fix it? Can you just be with me and give me your full presence? That is what being seen is. When we're in our mess, just as much when we're as low as we are high, and you're with me and you're here and you're holding me, like that's what women especially crave. And what tends to happen with the polarity of relationships, a woman will go to her partner and say, this is what's going on. He goes, okay, let me fix it, right? She doesn't feel seen emotionally, spiritually. And so as a result, she may sometimes loop then. She may say the same thing. It may be about him, and then she's saying it over and over and over. When really what she's craving is, I see you. I hear you. Tell me more. What else? And then when we're held in that way, in that sort of container, because the masculine is the penetrative force. The masculine is this cup, and the feminine is the expression, is the water, right? And so if I'm going to my man, and I'm in my feminine, which is my big emotions, and he just gets emotional or shuts down, the water goes everywhere, right? But if he can bring me his full presence and holds that, then I feel contained. Then I feel safe. Then I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. I'm not that scared, right? And so that's generally what I find with a lot of women is that they're looking to be held and seen in a way that's far deeper than skin deep. That goes beyond that. And so when her little girl comes online, and what I mean by online is present, is sort of like trying to run the show. So, I call myself a shadow spotter, which is like, no matter how much you try to hide, I'm going to see your things, your bits. I'm going to see them. And
damn, I feel exposed now.
Yeah. You're just going to be exposed. Sorry. And also like, let me love that. Let me reflect light back to that. Right. And so generally we're calling in women who are shadow spotters without even realizing they're shadow spotters. And because like attracts like, usually their men are that way as well. But there's judgment. Oh God, she's, nagging me again. Right. There's judgment instead of, like you were saying earlier, can I get curious? Hey, I'm noticing you don't want to make love tonight. Instead of writing a story of how she always does this, what's going on? What's going on in your body? What can I do? How can I support you? And so there's like a little bit more of teamwork and camaraderie that women are looking for. And not more often than not, but there are many times where they're not being met in that way. So what we do at Sacred Sisters and what I do working with women is great. Listen, you're dysregulated. Your man's dysregulated. He can't hold all of this, all your big emotions right now. Bring it to me. I got you. I'm not going anywhere, right? And so then it's a way to express and feel held so that then they can get into a place of self-regulation. That's where we bring in the breath work and tapping and different healing modalities. And then you're regulated. Great. Now have a loving conversation with your partner and let him know, I'm not feeling like you know who I am. I want your heart. I want your full heart. And I want you to see my heart. How can we meet in this way?
Nicely put.
Thank you.
For a lot of the men listening to this, me included, we have perhaps unconsciously pursued a pattern of the fixer, of the also within the fixing is the avoiding, because if I can fix her problem, then it doesn't provoke my underlying pain that's being reflected upon me by this woman.
Yeah.
The mother wound, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's a massive thing for men.
Yeah.
And if this is a process for long enough, then what happens is the trust dissolves between the woman and the man. And that can be very difficult to repair.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point where it's gone beyond reparation, it's gone beyond repair, even though some of the men listening to this maybe coming to realize they've been taking the incorrect approach, or they've not been seeing their woman in the way that you've beautifully put here on this conversation, and now they realize they're not their failures, but their unconscious, subconscious pattern that's been having effect on their relationship with the woman in their life, and then also realizing that this is what's actually created a sense of disconnection and distrust in the relationship. Do I turn this around now, or is it too late?
Right. Well, I think only it's in the eye of the beholder, right? So it's like the more we can do to regulate our body, the innate wisdom in our body, there's so much intelligence in the body. But sometimes it's hard to listen to the body because we're so dysregulated. We're working nonstop. There's so much static. There's so much noise. We're not eating well. We've lost touch with nature. We're not breathing. We're disembodied. We're not in our body. And so the more work he can do to get present in his body and feel the sensations, feel them, which can feel really overwhelming, right? But feel the sensations. Then he can get really honest with himself. Okay, I'm feeling at capacity. My wife is giving me 70%. I can only give her 40%. I can give her 100% of that 40%, but I can only give her 40%. If he's really honest with himself, and then he's honest with her, if you say it, I always would tell the men that I've been in partnership with, you can say anything to me, anything, as long as it's rooted in love. I don't need it to be florally, but like if it's rooted in love, because what is love? Love is truth. What is truth? Authenticity. So if you can get really honest and you're with a woman who, again, values being conscious and sort of like an awakening path of, let me be better. Let me be better today than I was yesterday, right? If you're with a woman like that, she'll be very honest with you. Thank you, number one, for telling me the truth. Oh, you're at 40%. Okay, I was demanding 100, so I need to sit with that. If you can only give me 40, am I okay with this? Or let's try it. Great. And so I think that's the way, is like first he has to get really honest with himself of, what is my truth? I love her. I don't want to be alone. Do you not want to be alone because you love her? Or, you know what I mean? Or what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And so do you just not want to be alone? And so I think once he takes self-inventory of what is true for him, and then he brings it to her, then they can come together and create maybe it's an entirely new relationship, right? Like in relationships, my ex-husband and I joke all the time. It was like he was with 30 people in those 18 years. I'm constantly changing and transforming. And generally that's what happens in relationships. And so you get to then carve out, we tried it this way. It's not working. Let's try it this way.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Just having a bit of that flexibility instead of rigidity.
Yeah. And like the other thing I'll say about it too, I know for me, like I was so afraid it was going to end, right? Even though part of me always knew it was. I was so afraid that I looked back and I thought, wow, like there was a lot I didn't say. And if it was going to end anyway, I might as well have said the things. And so then, I did a dance for a minute with my ex of just saying all the things. And like, my greatest wish for a long time was we'd find our way back to each other. That didn't happen. And now, like, thank you, bless you. My God, we had so many different versions of each other. And I know I'm clean. My side of the street is clean. I said everything. I left no stone unturned. And next chapter, so it's like also that too. Like, I think we are so afraid, like, oh God, but what if it ends? What if it doesn't? What if you get closer? What if it's better than you could have imagined?
Yeah. Well, more so than, as you mentioned before, feeling as though you're going to do something that's going to put you in a space where you're going to feel abandoned because the relationship is broken down. What's worse is self-abandonment.
And that's actually what we're upset about to begin with. It's when I teach women sovereignty, how to be sat on her throne, not seeking, not chasing after a guy, right? Like sat back and really trusting her wisdom. So like when we're all sat back and we're listening to what's going on, we don't have to worry about the nonsense, because at the end of the day, it is nonsense. It's usually in relationships, it's not lack of love, it's lack of seeing each other. It's lack of truth. It's the stories we create. And so that's also the thing too. It's like, am I holding on to resentments and stories? And can I bring that? Hey, I created this story that when you checked out that other woman, it made you want to be with her and not me. Also, I feel disrespected. So can we talk about this? And then can he hold that? Not get angry, not shut down. Well, part of me actually does fancy her. Ouch. Oh, well, yeah, she is hot. Like whatever it is,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked a lot about the woman expressing her anger, perhaps, but what happens when the man expresses his anger towards the woman?
Beautiful. So, it's interesting. I've helped women with this as well, because it's one thing when a man is in his anger and he's projecting it at you. Scary, right? However, if he can learn to express his anger with an open heart, so let that energy come from his sides, let it root down into the earth. It's actually really sexy. Women want that.
Even if it's about her?
Even if it's about her, because if it's honest and it's truth, think about if the energy is going at someone, ooh, scary, no, right? But even if it's a simple thing of like, if he comes and says, hey, I am feeling very primal and raw and angry, and I want you to know, I'd love to express it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here, but it would actually really help me to express this anger and for you to witness me in it. And this does not mean we're divorcing. This just means I really want you to see me in this. Are you okay with that? And so the masculine then asks the feminine, essentially, can you be in your masculine? So because anger is essentially an expression, right? So I used to try to explain this to my ex-husband, and he would get like, so, but I would say to him, when you're feeling any kind of way, an emotional way, and you want to come to me with it, you're essentially asking me to hold space for you. If I'm not prepared, if I'm like very much in my feminine, airy, fairy, flowy energy, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of anger, it's overwhelming. I'm confused. I'm not prepared. So if you say to me, I'm angry, can we talk about it? Can you hold space for me? What that tells me is, oh, let me get in my masculine. Let me be a container. Okay, let me prepare. Gonna go into battle, but not battle. So then he brings it. Then I get to go, what else? Tell me more, right? Until he feels complete. And if he's not complete, I can generally read it in his body. Pound your chest, stomp your feet, make out, like let a noise out, right? Again, this primal thing, it's actually really amazing. But if two parties are willing to get this vulnerable, then he does that. Then I get to say, okay, do you feel complete? He says, yes. No? All right, let's do more. Yes? Yes, you're complete. Okay. Then I get to say, what would be the most supportive to you? Would you like feedback? Do you want to hear my thoughts? Or do you just want to be in this? He says yes or no. Then I say, do you just want me to listen? He says yes or no. That's it. And then like a sort of aftercare, is there anything you're needing? Do you like need me to hold your hand, right? And so that's kind of the way you start to teach men and women how to hold space for each other. And so it's the exact same for a woman. So when she's in her big emotions, that's what she's wanting from him, and vice versa. And so if he's expressing his anger, but it's not directly going at her energetically, there's a different thing that happens. And it could be as simple as just truly moving his body and expressing it. If she's right in front of him, just expressing it to the side, it will land differently.
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that oftentimes the woman is expressing her frustrations towards the man to ignite this anger within him?
I love this question. This makes me so happy. So, yes, for some. So for me, I have a lot of fire. And so fire can look like a few different things. It can look like anger. It can look at like spiciness or feistiness. It can also look like sexual energy or sensuality. Essentially, all fire is creative life force. This energy gives life. It births life. And so for those of us feisty bitches, sometimes we want to fight, right? And so the mistake women make, this mistake I made in the past is, all right, I'm going to pick a fight with you, right? And so now what I do is, hey, fight me. Fight me. And what? What do you mean fight you? So what that looks like doesn't have to be words. Actually, I don't recommend it words. You sit in front of each other and she says, we're going to put on a song. Can you breathe with me for a second? And you breathe. And then she says, can I maybe like push on your chest a little bit? Or like pound on your chest? Can I maybe like pull your beard? I won't hurt you. You know, is there anything off limits? He says, yes, no, whatever. You do this to a song. He holds it. And then the song could be 3 minutes long. At some point, he will contain her. He will hold her. He will maybe grab her hips or hold her arms and just hold her and breathe with her. She will fully surrender. And it feels so good. All it is energy that's wanting to be moved. But because we're so disembodied and we live in our mind, we pick fights. Instead of just saying, I'm feeling really feisty today. Fight me. That's it. The end. And generally, guys like to wrestle too. So it's like everybody wins. And then it can turn into like further play, but it requires that level of vulnerability and him to know that he's safe in this and her to know she's safe in this. And then you turn that fire into play.
Amen. Again, all that sounds brilliant, but you do need to have two people, the man and the woman, to be very self-aware of themselves. And this obviously requires a lot of work on themselves to get to this place. Mm-hmm. And you
or someone willing to be a student in accepting, all right, I know I'm the man and I've led a lot. And also my wife is an oracle. She's brilliant. and she clearly knows a little bit more emotionally than I do right now. So let me be willing to just learn. So, but continue.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that may answer my question.
Okay.
But you may find this yourself with the women that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I find this a lot with the men that I work with. That the man's doing all the work on himself. And he's, again, cultivating this self-awareness and, love and strength and power within. And often the frustrations arise when he is with the woman and she's still stuck in her, again, in her head, or she hasn't got full awareness as to what's actually happening for her when she's having these moments of venting her frustrations or criticizing him. Or now, of course, part of the work for the man is to prepare him for these type of situations, and it can be the safe pillar of strength for her in these moments of vulnerability. But at times, the frustration can become all too much because nothing seems to shift or change. Now, that could be because the man possibly is because the man's vulnerabilities are being exposed through the experience. And again, here's his teaching, here's more lessons, here's more of your pain. And again, you're projecting it upon her. Continue to do the work. Take the message and the teachings from this venting or these criticisms from her and acknowledge what's coming up for you in this situation, because it's not about her, it's about you, and it's probably some type of a mother wound that goes right back to your past and to your childhood. So she's teaching you something. And again, you go and he'll do the teaching, but then the woman seems to just not move.
It's like he's outgrowing her. That's very common, I think, for both, when someone chooses having a growth mindset. And so my ex-husband and I, when we got together when I was 20 years old, our values were very different than they were when I was 38, right? And so I think coming together, first of all, and doing check-ins like every year. Hey, what do we value this year? Are we on the same page? And if you're not, that's information. And then also, I used to struggle with that too, I would be on this path of exploration and learning and growth. And I would be so afraid I was going to outgrow my husband. And I'd feel myself like starting to grow. And then in those moments of fear, I would say a very specific prayer. Give me eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart full of discernment. And if he is not for me, let him fall away. And just as I would be afraid, like, oh God, he would just shoot up. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, and so we did that dance for a really long time until we grew apart. And so I think there's also this reality of when we do this work, when we take self-inventory, we're going to see without the rose-colored lenses. And that includes our relationship and our partnership. And so then he gets to determine how long he's willing to continue in this way, and then have that conversation. I'm afraid we're growing apart. You are taking a different path. I'm taking a different path. I want to grow together. Are you willing to meet me in this? She can say yes or no. So I think that's what it just comes to, is like having a really honest conversation of, this is my fear. This is my want. This is my desire. How can we make this work?
Yeah, brilliant. I love that you brought the values piece in there, because that's something I've been speaking to a few of the men about quite recently, actually. And we often compromise our values just to suit somebody else or suit the relationship, and to ultimately suit ourselves, to keep ourselves safe.
We think it's keeping the peace.
Yes, of course. So, and that's been probably a part of my journey quite recently, is now revisiting these values that I haven't really looked at for quite some time. Of course, there's awareness and there's intuition about what those values are, but to see it written down on paper and then to realize, okay, here's what's actually really important to me. And this, for the men, when you understand your values, then, discipline and work and energy and focus simply follow those values. But if you don't know what's important to you, then you're sort of drifting in the wind, and you have no sense of direction in your life. So, and then, as you mentioned, this can also lead to a new direction in your life because you
Mhm.
realize what's important to you, which is not important to her. And there's this, as the growth mindset, but then there's the growing apart of the
Yeah.
mindset that brought the two of you together in the first place.
Mhm.
So was that the conversation you had with your ex, or did it sort of just
Honestly,
accumulate over a period of time?
It was pure chaos. We were both so dysregulated. It was not a mindful situation. And we thought, I mean, God, yeah. Basically, we were both unhappy and very much not seeing each other and not clearly communicating. We would try to communicate, but we don't know what we don't know. We needed more tools. We weren't getting the help that we needed. And so we took action and separated. And because we only knew how to be in relationship, we accidentally fell into relationships with other people. And then our dog of 16 and a half years died. And then my father-in-law passed away. And then my ex-husband had a stroke and heart surgery. I mean, our entire world was turned upside down, and we thought we had to make action. We had to take action and make decisions. And so we never once paused and grounded in. We just took steps, and it was just way too messy. And so we didn't ever really have that coming to Jesus moment of hold on, wait a second. We just thought we had to move forward quickly. And we've had many conversations since, and we're really good friends now, which is so lovely. But no, we did not do that.
Mm.
But also we don't value the same things anymore. We know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then all of that, it's the realization that love is not enough to keep a relationship together.
Yeah. It was, and that was what was so hard, because it's how can we have this story? And we did storybook love. It's it's the love that songs are written about, what movies are made of. How can we have that? And that's not enough. And sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I think that we all have free will in this lifetime. So you can have soulmates or twin flames or whatever you want to call it. And if one or both of you decide not to do certain things or to do certain things, it's, your time, that ship sails.
Mm-hmm. But that ship has brought you to a certain place in your life that you wouldn't have arrived
100%.
at.
And I love myself more
Yes.
than I ever have. And I have so much more fun, and I know myself so much more. And I'm so grateful, and I'm grateful that it was messy, and it was messy. But I'm so truly to have walked that battle and survived, and not only survived, but thrived on the other side is really incredible. And one of the biggest things I've learned is what powerful manifestors we are. Because when I got out of my marriage and I finally decided to open up to dating, I wasn't ready. But I said very specific things. I want it to be a friend of a friend. I want to be with a family man, a cultured man, a man who turns me on with his presence, inspires me with his purpose, and scares me with his integrity. Those are very specific. Well, I met an Irish lad who turned me on with his presence physically. But what I recognized is I want to be turned on physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Oh, you weren't specific enough.
No, specificity
Yes.
is everything. When I said inspires me with his purpose, what I meant is he has a prosperous purpose of service. He has service at the center of his heart. He inspired me with his prosperity, right? Family man, I meant big fan, he had a bunch of kids,
Mm-hmm.
Scares me with his integrity. What I meant was he has this unshakable pillar of integrity. His integrity was murky. And so that's where we get to say really, 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 oh, I want this with specificity, and be very clear on that. Because then what I also got to see is, oh, that's interesting. His integrity is murky. Where's mine? right? Because we like attracts like, and he was a beautiful sacred mirror in my life. So, all right, where am I out of integrity? Oh, you're not speaking your truth. Okay. All right. Like what else? What else? What else? And so again, it's taking inventory from each step that I take in my life and meeting new people. I now know exactly what I want. I know who I am. I know I'll constantly transform. I also know that I will never, ever, ever accept breadcrumbs when I give a feast. And so had I not walked through those initiations, I would have no idea, And so sometimes it's like being the experiential student to then step into the teacher, the embodied teacher.
Nice. The manifestation piece is quite interesting because it's something that I believe was introduced to it last year after a psilocybin retreat, and just realizing the incredible energy that is contained within us and that it's all connected to the external as well. And you can call in the external based on where you're at internally, basically. Do you feel there's something amiss when it comes to when people manifest? Because it's actually been a question that's been asked of me through the work with some of the men, and some of them are quite intrigued about it, but perhaps skimming around the surface, not too sure as to how to initiate or how to actually manifest something better into their life. So what's your idea of manifestation and the whole process behind that?
They say, Wayne Dyer says this, we will see it when we believe it. So I know I am worthy of great love, deep love. I've had it many times, right? So I know that's on the horizon. So when I just continue to see my North Star in that way, no matter what happens, I know I can speak that into existence. There's power of life and death in the tongue. And so it's really owning our desires, owning our wants, right? And speaking it. Maybe it's writing it down. You can script your life, but it's trusting that's where I'm going, right? And so I think there's a level of trust, even in saying, I don't know how to manifest, but I believe I can, right? I believe I can. What do I want to manifest? I want to manifest X, Y, and Z. And then it's holding that and looking at that and saying that and getting in the mirror and looking into your eyes and speaking what you want. It's simple, but if we're constantly thinking a lack mentality, a not enoughness, a he's going to leave me, she's going to leave, whatever it is, our life will reflect that, because ultimately, like wherever the wound is, the psyche will recreate those moments by situations, people. And so if we want to course correct, okay, this is the wound, tend to that wound. What do I actually want? And holding that and just being unshakable with it. I mean, there's so many, Deborah Messing, she's an actress who was in a show called Will and Grace. She was good friends with a friend of mine. And she said when she was young, like 18 years old, she would say, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be famous. Over and over. She would just go around, I'm going to be famous. She's wildly successful. And so it's holding that and having faith, even if it's the grain of a mustard seed. Just holding that. This is what I want to manifest for my life. This is what I am manifesting into my life. It is done. Also
saying it until you believe it. Because
yeah, there is a saying like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Right?
The resistance is in not believing that you deserve it.
Yeah.
Or that it doesn't exist.
Totally. Like when I was walking through healing the eating disorder, one of the things I would do is I would stand in front of the mirror and tell myself I was beautiful. I didn't believe it. I would immediately go, no, you're not. You're radiant. No, you're not. But I just continued to do it. I did it every day for 10 days. Nothing else changed in my life. And I had people on the street stopping me going, you are glowing. What are you doing? And that's when I was like, oh, there's something to mirror work. There's something to affirming what I want over my life. And so it's that, even if you don't necessarily believe it at first, you're watering your garden, the garden of your soul. And so it can't help but bloom to fruition.
Thank you. That's a lovely mic drop moment there. Noel, this has been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for simply being you and bringing your brilliant energy to this podcast, which is having a ripple effect onto all the listeners. And if they want to catch more of your ripples, where's the best place to get you at, and to potentially sign their woman up to one of your treats possibly, or at least to give her an idea of it. Yeah. Or for the men, of course. I mean, I learned that from your content as well. So we learn a lot from the women in our life. So thank you for being that teacher for us too. So let us know where we can find you at. Yeah, thank you. You can find me on Instagram. So Noel_Ellie, and that's Noel_ELIE. Also, for the women listening, we have retreats usually a couple times a year. We just had one in Ireland. It's called sacredsistersretreats.com. And I'm going to be launching a class called Alchemizing Anger, which is really fun and freeing and pleasureful. So stay tuned for that as well. That's going to be an online process? That's going to be online. A course over several weeks? It's just one class. Brilliant. Yeah, one class for $33. Anyone can sign up and it will change your life. Brilliant. And that'll be promoted on your Instagram at some point in the near future? Yeah, in the next month. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much, Noel. Thanks, Gavin.